On today's show, Cavs got a needed win in Portland. We're going to take stock of that win and the road trip. Let's dive in.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treats 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's J-A-S-E medical.com. I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. Thanks again to Jake Stevens, as always. Before we get into today's show, this boy Evan got married. Evan, show him the ring finger. Show it off. Look at that. Sparkly, shiny. How you feeling, buddy?
Scratched quite a bit, actually.
Yep, that'll
good,
happen.
Though. Yeah. For the OCD types like myself, you have to learn to just rotate it towards your palm so you don't see it as much. But then that's just another opportunity for scratches. Good, though. Nothing has really changed much. For those who may not know, Chris is one of my groomsmen, and I thanked him personally, but I'll thank him live on air as well. Thank you for being there on one of the biggest days of my life, and I'm glad there are now professional photos of us monkeying around at the Cleveland Art Museum and on the dance floor. And the more I learned, The more everyone enjoyed themselves. I'm glad I didn't kick back the shots, apparently, that were being passed around, but no, thank you to you, and thank you for holding down the fort while I was gone, and thanks to the listeners who reached out to me personally, just to congratulate me. It means a lot, truly.
Shout out to our producer Jake Stevens as well, who was there, who took.
He was a hit with my my high school not sweetheart, but everyone tried to pair us sweetheart, Mackenzie Blanton, who is straight edge, and cheers to her for pouring a bottle or a can of Apple Alani Nu into her champagne glass while we were doing toast. So first off, shouts to her for that, but also just sending me videos of Jake just slamming every cookie imaginable from the dessert table, saying like, this guy is hilarious. Who is he? And I had to introduce him a little bit, but yeah, seems like Jake had a great time.
Also, he I iced him, and he took it like an absolute champ.
You tried to ice me, then I passed it off to one of my groomsmen, Sai, who had already been iced before that. Because I didn't want it, and I said, "Hey, Sai, can I shake my hand with your left hand?" He's like, "That's a weird request, but okay." And I just slapped the bottle in his hand and walked away.
Yeah, I did ice you, but then I don't even know if you had this happen. Your brother said he was going to go ice somebody. He said he was going to ice one of his friends, and I said, "Okay, have a good time." And then it turned out he was trying to ice you, and then I tried to shut. Well, no, that was the second time I was iced. Yeah, I'm saying I got you.
It was a blur because I had to do my first dance. I'm just like, you know what? Fine. I chugged as much of it as I could, and then my wife just took it from me and finished the rest. But like that's the most I probably drank the whole night, because I had a whole champagne flute that just was untouched. Because I'm just like, I gotta stay sober. I gotta stay standing strong, because friend of the program, Carter Rodriguez, told me, he's like, it always makes me sad when people aren't able to remember the wedding because they drink too much. And also, friend of the program, Ty Windish, his wife, Haley Windish, told me that, if you want a happy wife the next morning, don't get too drunk at your wedding. And I think Ty fell victim to that, because he got married in the morning, and then we proceeded to go out to the bars in Milwaukee all afternoon and evening until the sun came out the next day, it seems like. So, yeah, I'm glad, like I said, everyone else had a good time. But, you were clever with that for sure, because you tried to get quite a few people with it.
I was 5 of 6, and then the second one you got, Sai was not feeling it, so He definitely wasn't, because he was 20 seconds away from the restroom to avoid painting the venue a new color. We'll leave it at that. But the Cavs Blazers,
they played the night of my wedding. Everyone asked if I was going to watch, and I made a face. But Cavs Blazers was a fun footnote to end this road trip for, otherwise kind of road trip for the Cavs.
Yeah. So the Blazers game to me was a very needed win. I think, certainly maybe not the most overwhelming win for Cleveland in any way. Portland isn't very good.
Down so many bodies.
And down a ton of bodies. But Cleveland won this with some comfort, won by 14. Just kind of kept their distance the entire way. The Blazers bench was pretty good. You don't have... you had the random Dean Wade starting bit of it with Darius Garland's situation. Look, all in all, like they just needed this. I think particularly after the performance on Monday against Sacramento. I think they just absolutely needed a win in any way, however it came. I think that just was a needed night for Cleveland, no matter how it came.
I think needed win is a good way to put it. Like, I think the way the Cavs looked was a little weird on this trip. You have a strong win against Golden State, just to kind of maybe cleanse the palate a little bit after that game against Oklahoma City, and then after a strong win against a Warriors team that is still finding itself, but has the potential to be a championship caliber squad. Like, you look at that Sacramento game, you're thinking, okay, yeah, there's some good momentum heading into Sacktown against the Kings, and everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong for the Cavs. We'll talk more about this road trip overall, but a positive way to end the road trip against a pretty bad Blazers squad that isn't trying to be good. Shaedon Sharpe was a lot of fun in this game, I think. I still have questions just about the overall vision of like DeAndre Ayton and stuff, and I think the Blazers are still going to be tearing some pieces down long term. But it was good to see the Cavs go out and kind of flip the script, cleanse the palate a little bit against Portland, and also just get a win against, in a different timeline, president of basketball operations Chauncey Billups and the Portland Trailblazers.
You don't have Darius Garland, so Craig Porter Jr. plays. Okoro is still out.
You took the bait at the wedding, but you didn't take it tonight. I'm disappointed myself.
I was behaving. I'm behaving better today than I did on Saturday, is what I would say.
You did, but when I mentioned Chauncey, you didn't go like, brother.
Yeah. The Chauncey thing is just truly like a moment that I could read a whole book about just that, and. What a time that was. But like, you got Craig Porter Jr. minutes because you don't have Darius Garland. Okoro is still out. Ty Jerome is still out. This is a Cavs team that doesn't feel particularly healthy, and you had 6 players basically playing the most of the minutes in this game, with George Niang playing 20 and no one else getting into double digits. Like, this team's just also it feels like it's in such a weird place health-wise, and that, like, as much as we're going to talk about this on our double up show for this Friday that we have coming up after this one. There is like just part of me with this that is like, I am both a little bit underwhelmed by them to start the year, but then the all the injuries and all the lack of continuity is really throwing a wrench in this. So it's like, I almost think you have to look at games like this and just be like, okay, you won. And but this isn't a game that I think like in a month we should be like, okay, that taught us something. I don't feel like I learned a ton other than that Donovan Mitchell makes like really memeable faces when Max Drew dunks. But like, other than that, like, what else did I really get out of this one?
And it's really hard to get a full spectrum or understanding, maybe other than the fact that George Niang is struggling to adapt to maybe what the Cavs need at the 4 position, just because they need to maybe be a little bit more creative in covering for him defensively when he is on the floor, because you're not getting much from him on the defensive side of the ball, and then maybe some rebounding every now and then, but like, he's going to get picked upon, and you need to find ways to cover for him. And sure, you're acclimating Jared Allen back into the lineup and rotation. Maybe there's ways you can maybe cover for Niang if he gets blown past on defense with like one of Mobley or Allen. And it's tough because you don't have Isaac Okoro, who's your best point of attack defender, who's been dealing with a pretty, it seems, serious knee injury at this point. He's missed multiple games at this juncture, and heading to this game against the Pistons, he's set to miss another one as well. And it's tough to fully evaluate that, or with Darius Garland just dealing with a random rash of ailments across the spectrum. Like, it's hard still to fully evaluate what this Cavs team is and can be, but it's become at least increasingly clear to me, especially with Garland's sideline, that the Cavs made a lot of smart moves this offseason but finding a more reliable and permanent option, regardless of whether or not Ricky Rubio was here to start this year, at backup point guard was kind of a misstep, on the Cavs part, or the front office's part rather, just because Garland, who does deal with a lot of freak injuries, and I'll say it is injury prone at this point, it's tough to watch him kind of be sidelined and also see how the Cavs are just falling apart on offense without him.
All right, coming up next, though, we're going to continue talking about the road trip. Big questions abound with this road trip. What do we make of it? All of that and more coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On and America's #1 sportsbook. You can score early and at this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. All you have to do is place a winning $5 moneyline bet, and if, again, that wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. They have a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season and continue with the NBA season as well. They have in-season tournament odds. They have all kinds of NBA-focused bets if that's more of your jam. So again, FanDuel.com/LockedOn, $5 moneyline bet. That wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, back here. Evan, I want to hit you on one thing. You mentioned point guards in segment 1. And I would be remiss from the SEO gods not to sneak in a question about Alex Caruso here, because the Bulls are staring...
Yes, trade for him.
Okay. So the Bulls are staring down the situation where Zach LaVine is going to get traded at some point. When that happens is an open question. It's hard to trade him right now. A Lakers trade, for instance, can't even really happen until January. So, it's not an immediate trade thing. It's still kind of early in that process, it feels like. But you would think that if they're trading LaVine, they might trade other players. Now, here's what to throw cold water on this. Cleveland absolutely should be interested in Caruso. He would be a slam dunk piece for them if they could get him in and solve a couple different issues in terms of guard play, in terms of backup defender, in terms of having another big, strong perimeter defender. Here's the problem. I don't think they actually have the assets to really do it. I think there might be a real market for Caruso, and I think Cleveland might get in some trouble if they really decide they wanted to pursue that.
I mean, the only way there's a viable quote-unquote market is if Zach LaVine, and I have had this bug put in the back of my brain, and I've been thinking about it a bit, he would be a really good fit with the Orlando Magic. And just kind of what they're building and what they're doing, especially because maybe the Magic are comfortable with giving Markelle Fultz to the Bulls, and the Cavs somehow parlay themselves as the third team. And to your point, the Cavs don't really have the assets to make these type of moves anymore, just because their big move again was to go get Donovan Mitchell, and then you kind of finish accentuating this team around Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and what you've assembled. They maybe took a stab at Alex Caruso back when Caruso was the free agent and then signed with the Bulls. But the only really way you're able to maybe get yourself into this conversation is if you get involved in the Zach LaVine trade as a third team, and that requires you maybe to sacrifice that Jared Allen domino sooner than anticipated. And sure, maybe you look at Orlando and say, how can we get Wendell Carter Jr. back from you in this trade instead? And that's a completely different can of worms in of itself, but it just doesn't seem realistic or likely. I know the Lakers have been mentioned as a team that are interested in all three of Caruso, LaVine, and also DeMar DeRozan, but I just don't think there's a viable path unless Chicago buys out Caruso and he's you know what, I'm going to stick it to Chicago and sign with the Cavs. And like you said, slam dunk fit makes so much sense on paper and in execution, but it just doesn't seem realistic for Cleveland right now.
If they could do it and it's salary in some seconds, you call it in, you don't even think about it.
The way you could do it is it's Ricky Rubio in some seconds, but then there's some murkiness and optics behind that, of course.
Yes.
moving the Rubio, just like looking at Ricky Rubio as a salary and a roster spot currently being occupied versus Ricky Rubio, the person who is dealing with legitimate mental health issues. Like or mental health, he's addressing his mental health. I shouldn't say issues, excuse me. Just more so the fact that like the optics behind that is so messy to do that, that like that's the only really realistic path. And I think Chicago also would get probably some better offers for Alex Caruso than Ricky Rubio in a couple seconds.
Yeah, I think they're gonna get a better offer. Evan, overall on this road trip, what stood out to you most?
Other than the point guard stuff, I just think the fact that this Cavs team is still very incomplete because health just kind of keeps affecting them at key positions. Oklahoma City was a bit of a shredder. I think the Cavs were able to hang in it at times, but like that's just a team that they stylistically struggle against because they have stretchy shooting big men. And you look at guys like Domantas Sabonis or Chet Holmgren or even Draymond Green at times, just because Draymond is able to do Hall of Fame caliber stuff. And it maybe crystallizes for me a little bit that like Evan Mobley still isn't a refined product. He has these moments where like he really steps up and like really shows out in ways that like, yes, there's development in that prototypical year 3 leap, but like you look at guys like Sabonis with the playmaking or the shooting, you look at guys like Chet with like the ability to defend multiple positions but also stretch out from the perimeter like he does. Like you're kind of waiting for things to click like that for Mobley. I know he did have like a career quote unquote defining game against Portland as well, and like he stepped up when the Cavs needed their second star to step up, but that's just kind of the other thing that's really stood out to me is just like the idea of Evan Mobley is more appeasing to me right now versus what I'm seeing, and what I see him playing against is just like kind of wish he was doing maybe a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I come out of this road trip thinking much of the same, and again, we're going to talk more about where this team is at overall on our next show, but I came away just feeling still a little bit, just feel like something's missing, and I talked about this on the one solo show I did earlier this week. There's that JB quote after the Kings game where he just kind of like lit into their effort and want, and I'm like, why that this is happening rings something of an alarm bell for me, that this is happening at this point in the season on a road trip.
You shouldn't be having that talk when you're still in like single digits games.
Yeah, it's just I don't totally understand like what is, something just feels off, and this road trip did not really change that. Like the Warriors the 2 wins against the Warriors have both felt like, okay, maybe this is turning a corner into where you put together a really aggressive team performance, and then the following game you don't. So just something still feels a little bit off to me in what is going on here. This road trip reinforced some of that. There's still stuff that I like. There's still stuff coming, but I still just am a little bit confused about what is going on here out of this trip. But again, we're going to talk about that more come our next episode in your feed later today. Coming up next, though, Cavs Pistons Friday night. What to watch for. Cavs are back home. Let's talk about that game up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I, the listeners, and I guess you and I, Evan. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. Thankful for the connection we have, and today I want our chat to be a little more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply of ED medications. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue, you are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, or Vito prescription, and this is possible because of our friends at Jase Medical. Go online right now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jase. Quote, I am thankful for the service. Supply chain issues causing me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. End quote. If you or someone you love would get peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Evan, Cavs Pistons, first thing for me, if you watch the Pistons this year, that team does not have a lot of spacing. Their starting lineup in particular, they're not good. The Marcus Sasser's fun. I have a dear friend of mine from college who's a diehard Pistons fan. I get one Marcus Sasser text every other day at this point. He's just in on that guy. They don't have Bojan Bogdanovic right now. They don't have a ton of spacing in that starting lineup. It's not a particularly good team right now. Certainly there's always going to be intrigue, I think, when you get Cade and Mobley together and kind of go through that. But this team right now is 23rd in net rating. They are 23rd, in offense and 22nd in defense. This just isn't a particularly good team at the moment, and Cleveland should be pretty much expected to win, I think, even with them not being at their best right now.
So from the optics of the Detroit Pistons, I made the joke, whether it's on X or Twitter or whatever the heck you want to call it, or on this show, that like Ime Udoka, Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet should be arrested for stealing all that money from the Houston Rockets. My new candidates.
That team's good.
That team's really good. And
that team's good.
Early season hot takes. I too, someone who is usually always right, can admit when they're wrong. But more than that, you look at the Pistons and you think they pay more money than God to get Monty Williams, but the decisions Monty is making with this Pistons squad really confuses me. I am close with some Pistons fans, and also just like we have a pretty thorough connection with them, especially that Andre Drummond trade. And we talked a lot with a lot of Pistons hosts and everything else about what to expect in this situation. But I'm just confused. Cade Cunningham is technically your starting point guard for this team. Why isn't Jaden Ivey starting next to him? Why is he being punished and relegated to the very back of the rotation? Sir Thompson, yeah, I think he's going to be the dude for the Pistons, even better than Cade, just because I'm that high on the Thompson twins. The Stewart-Duren combination confuses me. I think Marvin Bagley being your backup center doesn't do much for you, and I think James Wiseman staring down the barrel of that isn't great. And then you have Monty Morris, who you got from the Wizards because the Wizards are looking to rebuild, or who has been trumped by Marcus Sasser and should not play because Sasser's been so good for the Pistons so far this year. But just the Pistons confuse me. I think they're a team that I knew it was grim when Kevin Knox was their leading scorer the other night.
Yeah.
And I was just oof, that's when you know things are bad. It was 2 games ago in Chicago when an 11-point loss, Kevin Knox was their leading scorer with 18 points. So to go back to the last segment when we talked about the Cavs, quote unquote, turning a quarter against Golden State and maybe running into a wall that were, I guess, the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Sacramento Kings. But in this situation, against the Blazers, a not good squad, the Cavs are able to kind of cleanse the palate, come off at least a little bit of a strong win to end a kind of up and down road trip. And you head back home. And this is an opportunity for you to continue to distance yourself from some of the ickiness of early in this season, and also just kind of focus on, okay, what are the next steps for us so that we can actually turn this corner and start kind of building that, I wouldn't say early season momentum, but the Cavs are almost... they're more than 10 games in. Excuse me, it's a double-digit wins or losses, but they are now entering 12 games into the season. Get back to 500 with this game. This should be an easy win, with or without Garland, with or without Mitchell, who is questionable for this game too. If you just have Mobley and Allen, the Cavs can probably handle Detroit's front line, and I think Max Strus, Karis LeVert, maybe Amani Bates has a big night as well. But the Cavs have enough firepower to handle a pretty bad Pistons squad. And this could just be another game where they continue to keep turning the corner and kind of keep building off of positive momentum off of wins.
2 quick notes about this game. Number 1, injury report as of right now. Darius Garland is questionable with his neck issue. Donovan Mitchell questionable due to the hamstring issue he's been dealing with. Okoro listed as out. Ty Jerome listed as out. Ricky Rubio obviously listed as out. So if possible, the Cavs are not totally at full strength here. This is also an in-season tournament game. This is an NBA Cup game. Evan, I think I just want to say this. We should just be calling it the NBA Cup all the time. It's a better name. I know that's what the trophy's called, but the NBA Cup is a better name than in-season tournament.
Well, is NBAC trademarked by something?
I don't know.
The North Baltimore NBA Aquatic Club. You got the NBA's number.
In-season tournament, Cavs are 0-1 so far.
Which is
not going to say
a lot of teams are almost done with their, like the Pistons. This will be their third in-season tournament game.
Yeah.
Like the Cavs have really kind of been idling for a bit after losing to the Pacers.
Yeah, they get Philly soon after this. Like their slate's going to come up, but like if they don't, like they're behind the 8 ball as it is already behind Atlanta and behind Indiana, but it's kind of do or die here as far as their in-season tournament hopes go, because they lost a game to Indiana. Indiana's 2-0 in the group. Atlanta's 1-0. Philly's 1-1. Detroit's 0-2. Cleveland kind of needs this to have any hope of to keep it alive and keep any hopes of making it to Vegas and making a run in this thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously we'll see how this goes, but you would assume they beat the Pistons. The Cavs can realistically stay alive in this NBA Cup race, but we'll see. It's been fun so far. What are your thoughts on the Cavs in-season tournament court versus maybe what they played against the Pacers the other day?
It is one of the better ones because it's not an outright offensively designed thing in terms of like what it does to my eyes when I look at it. It is just like fun, like the Cavs jerseys overall. It is just fine and not an eyesore. It's not anything I love, but it's fine. It's okay.
Quality substance, not too much flash. I think that's what you kind of need to do with a costume. You literally change every single season because jersey sales are crazy. And yeah, looking at the grand scope of like these in-season tournament courts and the City Edition jerseys that teams are rocking with, it's a shame the Pistons won't be rocking their Bad Boys ones tomorrow or Friday night because those are one of the better ones. But yeah, the Cavs understood the assignment. They stuck with their branding and made it work conducively with the organization that is Playoff Square that they partnered with.
Trying to think of any other in-season tournament. I will say I'm excited to see what their city jerseys look like in person because I believe they're wearing those on Friday.
Yeah, they are. So from my understanding, home teams for sure during the in-season tournament wear their City Edition threads. The City Edition court, which is somewhat similar to the layout of the in-season tournament one, sans the giant trophy on the court or anything. You get a taste of all of it. But yeah, I think the Cavs will look pretty nice. At least comparatively to the Pistons, who are a team that kind of feels like they need to have an identity refresh and just bring back the teal demon horse. Why not? Just lean back into what worked in the past.
Yeah. All right, we're going to be back tomorrow with another episode, or later today, with another episode of Locked On Cavs, checking stock of the Cavs. 11 games in, we're going to look at some numbers. We're going to look at just play some word association and see where we're at with this team and see if it's time to revise our expectations for this team based on what we've seen so far. We're going to talk about that on the next episode. Thanks again to Jake Stevens as always, and welcome back, Mr. Married Man, Evan Dammarell. Evan, one more time, show us the ring.
You know, I thought it would turn me invisible when I put it on, but
no, you got to go like this if you're going to do that. You got to go.
No,
you got to
like
do
the Ring of Power.
Oh, okay.
Jared Allen's the first book, but
can I admit something? Like
you've never watched or read Lord of the Rings?
No, I've watched them. Have never read them. Have not watched that. Like, but it's I'm not attached to it in the way some people are. I actually don't know if I've seen all of the movies.
Objectively terrible. One of the most offensive movies ever. Don't get me started. I actually get really hot about this.
Subscribe to our Patreon. It doesn't exist for Evan's Lord of the Rings thoughts. Talk to y'all later.
No, Lord of the Rings, cinematic masterpiece. You don't need to watch the director's cut.
The Hobbit.
One of the most offensive movies I've ever.
Talk to y'all later.